Okay guys, welcome back to another video, and I'm going to do this video by I'm going to start this video off by sort of reflecting on the nostalgia I have on nights out, and this is something that people always say about nights out, but I think the best part of a night out is always the pre-drinks, right? That's what everyone always says, isn't it? It's when things are just setting up to the main event of going to a club or whatever you're doing that night. It's always the person's house you go to before where it's the most fun. And this is just a very well observed thing, actually I was just reading about it today, this idea that the dopamine, the sort of expectation of dopamine, that bit just before you get the dopamine is that's the really bit where you're most excited. So reaching for the cigarette is so much nicer than actually smoking it. Or, it's that minute just before you turn on the TV where that feels so much nicer than actually watching TV. And this is actually why TikTok and Shorts and this kind of new form of content we have where you're just flicking through loads of videos. That's why it's so addictive, which really blew my mind when I thought about it. So it's not that the actual videos that you're watching is very fun, because most of the videos you watch on TikTok aren't actually that interesting. And I just thought that's because there's not very much good content out there. But if you look into how the algorithm works on TikTok, it's not about delivering you loads of good videos that you want to watch all the time. It's just about keeping you on the screen for the longest amount of time, right? And how they do that is not by, you'd think it'd be by giving you just loads of videos that you really like, but actually the best way to do it is random rewards. So, you might have this experience if you've been on, when you go on TikTok or Instagram Shorts, or Instagram Reels, whatever it is that, you're scrolling through a lot of videos that are quite funny, quite interesting. They're just about funny enough to keep you on there, but they're not really, they're not blowing you away. And then suddenly you'll come across a video that you find either it's really funny, or it's really thought-provoking, or really entertaining, and you're like, fuck, wow, this is so cool. And you add it to your saved videos. And just think about how often that actually happens, that you come across a video that you actually really like, that you're really entertained by, that really makes you laugh, or it's really interesting, or whatever it is. Just notice how often that is, because it's actually not that often that you get. I mean, it's often enough to keep you on the app, but the vast majority of videos you see on TikTok are just, they're not that exciting to you. They make you laugh enough. They're interesting enough, but they're not blowing your mind away. And that is the whole reason why it's so addictive, is because it's not because you're enjoying every video you're watching, it's because there's a random rewards. At any point you might come across a really exciting video. It's that anticipation that you're going to come across that exciting video any minute now. And it's the same thing with gambling. The anticipation of getting a win. All this other stuff. It's such, you just see it in everything. It's not actually about the enjoyment of the sort of rewards. It's the anticipation of the rewards. So that's something to really bear in mind, and understanding that can really sort of help your dopamine system. And in fact, I think there's a sort of quote. It's a bit sort of going off on a bit of a tangent, but I think there's a quote in Winnie the Pooh that was that moment just before you reach for the honey jar is so much nicer than eating the honey itself. So that's kind of old British example for you. But it's weird because I remember my dad telling me that quote years ago, and now I'm sort of reading all these books like Atomic Habits and understanding how dopamine works and stuff, and motivation works, and it's that's the same thing. He was, whether he knew it or not, that is the exact same thing that's sort of been observed in these scientific studies. So anyway, it's a bit of a tangent, but I think it's to get back to the topic at hand. The point I am making is that it is that anticipation of a night out that's really exciting. The thing when things are just starting to ramp up that are really exciting. And I've observed that actually it's a very similar thing to the kind of excitement you get in when you go on a night out, when you're at a sort of pre-drinks. It's very similar to the excitement you get when you wake up really early. So, because you just have that ramping up to the day that most people don't have. So I remember like getting up sort of normal time in the past, and it's like you're just straight into it, you know, you're just straight into the chaos of life. You don't really have any time to warm up. You know, like let's say you're working at midday, you know, I get up at 10. Oh fuck, you know, I've got to get ready for work, you know, I have breakfast. You know, it all goes so much more quickly if you get up late. But if you get up early, you have that sort of period of anticipation for the day where you can really set it up properly, and that's really nice. Like I'm seeing, you know, I got up really early this morning. You know, I haven't really slept very well because I was up late last night. You can probably tell by my eye bags. But you know, I got up very early this morning because I needed to do some stuff. You know, removal men and whatever. And I'm seeing a relative in town later, and I'm seeing them at 1 o'clock, and in my head, I'm still on kind of a normal cycle of like getting up at 10, you know, or whatever, and it's like, oh fuck, you know, I've got to get to this place to meet them at this time, you know. It's kind of, in my head, it's like really soon, but in reality, it's 9 o'clock now, and I've got 4 hours till I need to be there. And it's just so like, wow, that's sort of set up. You know, I can just see it so far off in the distance, the destination I've got to get to, and I can just ramp up to it really nicely. I think it's similar to how you know, like a good night out is ramped up to nicely with a pre-drinks, or you know, like there's a nice sort of period before the main event. You know, like I remember sometimes when I went out in university and stuff, it'd just be like, I'll just be getting ready at like 10 o'clock, you know, 10 o'clock in the evening, and you know, it's like 11, 12 o'clock before you're out, and it's like you just go straight into the club or straight into the flat party, whatever it is, straight into the main event, and it's not nearly as enjoyable. Than if you have a sort of gradual build up to it. So that's something I kind of think of when, it sounds really sort of stupid, but I do think of sort of getting up, that sort of period between like 5 o'clock to 9 o'clock. It's like the kind of pre-drinks for the day, you know. It's sort of warming up, you know. And it's like, if you've ever been to a sort of, if you ever worked at a festival or something like that, or you've been somewhere where sort of they're setting stuff up for an event, you know, and you just kind of see, like, I remember I volunteered at Reading this one time, and we had to get there like a day early, and you just see everyone sort of putting up all the big stuff, and it's like, oh, you know, do you need a hand with this, you know, and they'd sort of be building these massive stages, and you see everything sort of coming in and sort of laying out. And it was so like cool to see that sort of build up, and the early morning's a bit like that, you know. It's just like you've got that space just to be like, oh, you know, I need to do this, I need to rearrange this, and it's so weird. Like, one last thing that I'll say is, if you get up really early in the morning, it's like you can just decide what you want to do that day. Like in the past, I would have to decide on a plan of the day, like straight away, you know, there and then before I went to bed. So, like, let's say, like my dad was going somewhere this week, and he wondered whether I wanted to come with him. And I was like, let's see how things are in the morning. You know, he had to leave at like 8:30. But I was like, I'm getting up at 6, so we can decide then. You know, there's something quite nice about that. I mean, obviously, like, I'm going to bed earlier, so, you know, in a sense, like, nothing's really been gained, but there's something really sort of huge about being able to do that. For me, anyway. So, anyway, guys, thank you very much for watching, and yeah, I'll see you in the next video.